In fact, they're the same talking points. Lou Dobbs, members of Congress like Steve King and others, Glenn Beck, Michelle Malkin, Ann Coulter, Pat Buchanan, they say the exact same things. And so while there's a strong campaign right now to distance the organizational connections between people, the one thing that links them all is their speech. What they say to incite a group of people to take action basically on Congress to stop progressive legislation from happening. But that climate, that language is also seen in the folks who act out very violently. I just want to bring your attention to some of the ways that this extreme language becomes mainstreamed, so to speak. This weekend on Saturday, there's going to be an event across the river in McLean, Virginia, hosted by American Cause. This is an event that American Cause is an organization that's headed up by Pat and Bay Buchanan, and whose executive director is Marcus Epstein, who's recently been in the news for committing a hate crime, an attack on an African-American woman, unprovoked in Georgetown. This group has been really a center of anti-immigrant language and advocacy. And they are bringing together such luminaries as Tom Tancredo, Pat and Bay Buchanan, and others who've been leaders in the leading mouthpieces in the anti-immigrant movement. Interestingly, they are also being joined by folks who have been who have been quoted as saying that black people are a retrograde species of humanity, and others who have direct ties to white nationalists. And so what we see is that, as my good friend at the Anti-Defamation League once told me, that these folks don't hate Jews and black people any less. They've just found a new way to recruit members, and that is by using the word illegal and by focusing on immigrants. And these same messages not only appear not only come out of the mouths of some of these extremists, but they also show up in the flood of faxes and phone calls that members of Congress get, and that have been basically the reason why, the main force in blocking comprehensive immigration reform from passing in the past. Numbers USA, a leading anti-immigrant organization, says they plan to send 8 million faxes to Congress this year. They are a powerful force in really blocking immigration reform from happening. But this weekend, these folks who are the most extreme speakers and who make frequent appearances in the mainstream media are being joined by the leader of the campaign against universal health care, Rick Scott. They are being joined by a leader in the GOP campaign to stop environmental regulations. They are being joined by the leader of the anti-affirmative action campaign. And so this language, this pattern of using inflammatory language against one group of people is not limited just to undocumented immigrants with violence, as Clarissa has pointed out, but this language has been used to galvanize folks in opposition to all of these other priority issues. So I will leave it at that, but I'm really glad to be joined here by my colleagues, because this is a really serious thing that the media really needs to change their tune and to call these people for who they are.
Thanks. Nancy?
And thank you. I'm Nancy Zirkin, Executive Vice President of the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, our nation's oldest and largest civil and human rights organization. I'd like to thank Media Matters for doing so well covering the right broadly, whether it's on judicial nominations or facts or whatever, and specifically on this hate issue. It's very, very important. Last week, as you all know, at the Holocaust Museum, a guard opened a door for an 88-year-old man, and the favor was returned when he was shot and killed by this white racist supremacist whose well-known views have been on blogs forever. His words turned to hate. Yesterday, teens who last year brutally beat and killed Luis Ramirez, Latino father of 2, were sentenced to 6 to 23 months in prison for a charge of simple assault. The simple assault was not so simple. The teens pushed Ramirez to the ground and repeatedly kicked him in the head as he laid unconscious, convulsing and foaming at the mouth. One of the attackers screamed racist expletives. 14 months earlier, and this is the connection that everybody has been talking about, 20 miles from where Ramirez was murdered, Lou Dobbs held a Broken Borders town hall to spotlight and praise a neighboring town's passage of an illegal immigration relief act. This act sought to suspend business permits and licenses of employers who hired unlawful workers or landlords who rented to them. While this particular incident wasn't directly related to Dobbs, and hate violence, particularly, as Heidi said, at a time of national financial crisis and significant political change and uncertainty. The hounds of intolerance are being fed by a combination of extreme political rhetoric, the sensationalism and irresponsibility of too many in the media, and the uncertainty posed by our shifting demographics. Hatred that leads to violence is a matter of fundamental concern to the Leadership Conference. In the wake of these recent attacks, now more than ever, it's time to pass the Hate Crimes Prevention Act so that people are protected from violence because of their race, religion, sexual orientation, gender, ethnicity, or disability. Earlier this week, the LCCR Education Fund released a report, there are copies back on the table, that documents some disturbing trends in hate crimes, including a very frightening statistic. Since 1990, when the collection of statistics began, a hate crime is committed every hour on the hour. Not on the hour, but every hour. In our report, we found a marked increase in hate crimes committed against Hispanics and those perceived to be immigrants, and how this trend correlates closely with the increasingly heated debate over immigration reform, as Adam and Clarissa said, and an escalation in the level of anti-immigrant speech on radio, TV, and the internet, heightening a sense among the Hispanic and other minority communities of fear.